Hey guys, Cynical Apex Commentaries here with another video today. This time it is actually going to sort of be more of a recap slash reaction video rather than my usual discussion content, because this is something I've really wanted to do simply because I felt like the SFJ's diss track on Dax was straight fire and was a brilliant way not just to encapsulate the beef that they had, which has now been resolved, but also to actually start sort of a movement on YouTube for not just smaller channels, but in general reaction channels and the impact that they can have on popularity of creators and influencers. Something that I did discuss in my first ever video on the channel, and consider this somewhat of a follow-up to that, but in more of a practical sense, so to speak. Now, with the drama itself, it really started with Gene and Dax collabing on a video called Dream Chasers, which is a really good video and track in general, and what woke me up to actually how good Screwface Gene really is as a rapper. Now, the first one I'd actually heard of him, which is also involved in this drama somewhat, is the Four Horsemen that Dax, Screw, Quedeca, and Crypt all collaborated together on, where I felt like Screw's verse was just there, so to speak. It wasn't really anything that would stick out to you. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. And I'll get more into insights on what I think about Dax in collabs as we go on with the reaction. But I'll say this. I do think he's just simply going through the motions because, as you'll see, he doesn't consider himself a YouTube guy. He's more just like a mainstream rapper, comparable to guys like Tory Lanez, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and that sort of group, rather than the YouTube group that Screw considers himself as being a part of and really immersed in, as evidenced by one of the videos he did recently, where it was essentially a conclusion slash state of the union for YouTube channels. Now, Screw is a really good rapper from what, as I said, from the Dream Chasers, and also from this diss track. You'll see how talented this guy really is in it, because he really not only spits facts, but he also does it in a manner where you can really feel the emotion. You can feel how raw and real this beef was to him, how personally he took some of the actions that Dax did, which included not pushing something when Screw had paid him to push it, which was the Dream Chasers. And then with the track itself, when he eventually did quote tweet Screw's post of it, it was more of like a PR move. It was like, just check this out, rather than actually having any emotional connection to it. So before I start rambling on and on, let's get into the reaction so you guys can hear it for yourselves.
YouTube route is good. I don't want to be a YouTuber, but I can use my skills to make songs and diss tracks on some of these guys to where the songs still sound like actual songs.
First of all, I'm just going to say I love the name choice. I love the whole I'm not Dax, Joyner, or Don Q, which plays off Dax's Tory Lanez diss, which was I'm not Joyner or Don Q. The reason why I like it is because I've always loved sort of that chain thing. It allows not only if there was going to be a response, and there won't be, as Screw said in his conclusion video, that Dax had told him he wasn't going to respond, and you'll see that it's the smartest choice for him not to, because there's really no way you can necessarily respond to this, as Screw pretty much closed most of it and made his points so poignant that if Dax were to try to respond, it would just come across as being meek and almost like, hey, let's just do this for the sake of doing it, rather than actually having anything valid to add to the context or the situation at hand. Furthermore, but if he was, he could just take it and be like, I'm not Screw, Joyner, or Don Q, and continue on with that, and sort of take that line of thinking to the next level. Now, his whole diss track and song at the same time thing is a common thing in rap. Most rappers do this. Whether or not you actually realize it or not, if you listen to most rap songs, there are quite a few, like, what I'll call in Twitter terms, subtweets or sneaky little disses thrown into their songs to sort of fit in with the context and blend in with the rest of the song, so to speak. And that's something that Dax tries to do.
That shit shut down. Great. That's what I'm saying. In goddamn 2019, we're turning the word clout chaser to a positive term.
He won't be able to do that. But it is something I have discussed. Now, I'll talk to you about clout chasing. I didn't really discuss it in depth in my video where I brought it up and the whole price of fame stuff. But clout chasing is where you basically cling on to certain names or certain topics that make you popular and you just ride the wave. It's sort of a flavor of the month mentality, which is, again, for another video, but it's something that I personally hate. So speaking, I know that's a strong word, but it's not something that I believe in. I don't believe you should be chasing the flavor of the month. Now, I do get the whole you should look towards those that are bigger than you or more famous to begin with, to sort of get a base and a foundation before you carve out your own niche. But there's the key point there, carving out your own niche. And people who don't do that, who just want to be clout chasers and want it to be positive, are those that will fade away ultimately once everyone realizes that they really don't have much you can relate to from a personality standpoint and use the situation to try to push themselves up rather than themselves or being real to who they are or where they came from.
Brainiac.
Drink some good water right now, man. I'm not for real, man. I'm gonna say it slow so they can hear it fast. They love me for my energy, let me tone it down, man. So I can really feel it, though. Lord, it's Screwface in the place and I'm about to handle you. Heard that you a hooper, well, these shots about to damage you. But this ain't no suicide drill to check your stamina. I'm ill, this suicide for real for any challenge. And
I love that sort of line. Now, the first part is basically he's conflating his own shot to shots in basketball, as Dax himself was a hooper in college. He played Division 1 with Montana, barely played really, then moved to the Division 2 level to Newsom College in Kansas, where he was the leading scorer there one season. I couldn't really find much other stats about it because most of the sites that I look up do most Division 1 stuff, and there's not really many statistical resources for Division 2 ball, which is somewhat sad, to be honest with you. But yes, he basically only averaged like a minute a game for Montana, which is why he transferred. And then the suicide reference as well as another basketball reference. And as someone who played basketball in primary and high school, I can tell you that the suicide drill is actually really, really tough. It's like the ultimate stamina test, alongside the beep test for general physical education. And I love how he conflated that and made it into like, oh, this isn't just your usual test of stamina or your usual suicide drill. If you come at me, I'm going to force you to commit career suicide, or I am going to knock you down to the point where if you were to respond, it would be career suicide.
Low-key, it's looking like Eminem versus cannabis. Shady's going crazy on the janitor from Canada.
This line's amazing. Eminem versus Cannabis is one of my favorite beefs of all time. It's one of my favorite rap battles. Of course, Cannabis is an underrated Canadian ex-janitorial assistant or whatever, and Eminem is the GOAT in rapping. Not just battle rap, he is the GOAT of rapping, in my opinion. And using that line was just a callback, a throwback. It actually sends shivers down my spine to hear it. Just shows how knowledgeable Screw is about rap, and of course, as you would find out if you've watched his videos, he's been doing this a lot longer than he's done YouTube. Which isn't surprising because he has sort of the flow and he has the rhyme schemes down pat. He has them down to a T.
Dismantle you, my niggas will handle you. Ain't no man in you like how you manage to hold the microphone with a manicure. You true loser, all the YouTubers, they should banish you. You still be clickbaiting bad baby if they weren't fans of you.
Yeah, I don't know much about the clickbaiting bad baby stuff, but the whole YouTubers should banish you is a line of thinking that he takes throughout this diss track, actually. And it's more of a, how are you going to deny what made you? And it is the people that created you that can destroy you. As I am your creator, I can be your destroyer, is the mentality that he is saying YouTube should have towards him. Or rather, YouTubers should have towards him, not the actual platform itself. But Dax denying that he's a YouTuber and trying to push himself as a mainstream rapper who's using YouTube simply as a leverage tool sort of rubs Screw up the wrong way. And honestly, it somewhat does to me too, but I get it. I respect the hustle. I respect that you've got to use the tools you have at your disposal to make yourself big. And Screw, of course, is what he'll consider a true YouTuber. He embraces the platform. He embraces everything around him. And that's why I respect him. I respect him for SFJ Nation, as they would like to call themselves. He has the fan base there, and he's subscribed to the fans, as he likes to say it himself. And that's a mentality I can respect. He really goes out there, he hustles, he does everything for the fans, and he wants to bring them along his journey. He wants it to be sort of a personal connection with them, and knowing that he embraces where he came from. He embraces what made him. And he embraces his rise alongside those who reacted to him, for those who put his name into the light.
Yo, told Adam 22, ain't no YouTube nigga, so point at him with 22s and shoot like YouTube nigga, you doo-doo nigga. Let's talk about that Four Horsemen shit. How you did a verse, heard ours and re-recorded your shit. Cause you laid your verse first, but it was whack as a bitch.
Here we go. Now, the Four Horsemen stuff, as I said earlier, Dax actually re-recorded his verse after everything had been sent to mix and mash. This is something that really just makes me think, no. It's almost like, hey, I know I didn't do well on the test, so after handing it in, can I have it back so that I can fix it and hopefully get a higher grade? Teachers are going to laugh at you and say no. And of course, Crip did allow him to, and as you'll see later on, he snuck in a little diss saying basically 3 guys and a goat, which to me just is like, no. Why are you going to diss people on a track that they asked you to collab on? How are you going to do that? It's like, yes, sure, you are one of the better rappers on this platform, but isn't your aim to try to bring your A game? Because honestly, and I'll say this now, I don't think he did on the video. Whereas I felt like Quadeca and Crip did carry it, and Screw, as I said, his verse was just there. But here, you really feel the raw emotion, and you feel that it made Screw feel a certain type of way when he did it. As Crip noted himself in his video, and as Screw admitted in his video, where he really just started the whole drama train, along with Dwayne TV, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Then on your second attempt, you try to throw out a diss. 3 niggas in a goat, please get off of that shit. It was 3 niggas spitting and 1 nigga rapping about his dick. And the reason you ain't pushing sounded like a funny story, cause you didn't agree with it, but still took the money for.
Here's another snake move. It's like, why are you going to take the money for something if you don't believe in it? It's like, hey, I just wanted the money. I just did this for the money. There's no denying it. Now, as I said, I do respect the hustle, but sometimes you've got to be upfront. You've got to be upfront about it. You can't just hide your intentions for just the money behind a facade of happiness, a facade of being an overall positive person who's trying to uplift and bring about changes, when in the end you're actually being sort of hypocritical, or you're being what you claim to have hated. And I can see how that exactly did rub Screw on the wrong way. Now, Crypt with the Four Horsemen stuff did say that he didn't expect Dax to push it, or he didn't ask Dax to push it. Whereas SFJ did ask Dax and actually did pay him to push the Dream Chaser stuff, which Dax didn't do until either SFJ himself or his PR team forced him to. And even then, as I said earlier, it was sort of a coerced, forced, almost a drab, generic reply that you would get from an answering machine rather than one that had any emotional investment or connection to it. Especially as SFJ said that he paid around like $3,000 all up to work with Dax on the video and stuff like that. It's like when you're putting $3,000 in, you're expecting at least some commitment and investment from the person you're working with in return. Because again, $3,000 can be a lot depending on how much you have in your circumstances. But using the average person as a base here, $3,000 is a lot. And you can put it into a lot of other projects that you know you'll have more motivation and more energy behind, so to speak.
Where I'm from, you can get shot. Niggas getting buddy for it. With my bees in the trap, you catching a honey for it. That's a drum bitch, dumb bitch, leave him in the dirt. That's basically how this dude sounds on every single...
Nebraska sounding like the ghetto right there. And hey, it is what it is. But yeah, you can feel right there. It's like SFJ saying, if you do what you did where I come from, you're going to be ended. You're going to be down on the ground and you're probably going to be killed for it.
First thing is Dax. I was a motherfucking janitor, and I don't know the shit because I was a motherfucking janitor. And you don't even get it, I was a motherfucking janitor. And did I mention I was a motherfucking janitor?
Can I just say that is the greatest impersonation of all time, to be honest with you? Like, I don't mind Dax per se, but he does go on a lot about how he was a basketball player and how he was a janitor when he was in Kansas. It's like logic and his biracial tendencies. Like when he brings that up every single song, it gets tedious, it gets repetitive. And to bring up the pop genre, Taylor Swift and her ex-boyfriend situations and her like boy drama in general, it's like, come on, do you have anything else of substance to add? Or are we just going to be listening to a broken record over and over again?
Get it, but it's pathetic. By this time you should quit. You chuckle at your fake struggle every time that you spit. Now I ain't saying that you're lying and shit, but you so fake, dude. You have to push that story. There's nothing else we relate to.
And there we go. He's basically saying, hey, can you give us something else that we can actually relate to? Or are you really that shallow that your crux is, or your crutch, both words are applicable here, is the whole, I was a janitor story, look at how I rose from being a janitor, yada yada yada.
You don't even stick to your word, so people make you. How you shitting on YouTube? These people made you. You start throwing strikes at smaller channels like Dwayne, dude. I hope the
here we go. Basically, yes, this all started when Dwayne TV did a video where he called out Dax for this. It was fully critiquing him and basically saying, hey, you repeat your lines, you sort of try to snake your way to the top rather than actually allowing natural rise and trying to uplift people, whereas isn't that your message at the end of the day? Aren't you trying to uplift? Then why are you saying that, but then going behind people's backs and being a snake? Why are you being everything you hated whilst trying to claim to hate that at the same time? And Dax struck him down. Dwayne's a great reactor, by the way. I love the guy a lot. One of my favorite videos to watch, to be honest, is his reactions to stuff. He has a lot of energy, has a lot of passion for this, and you can feel it with Screw as well. Screw's saying, hey, I'm looking out for you. I'm here. This isn't just about me and Dax. This is about all of us as a community. And again, as I said, it's basically the whole story of the creator also being the destructor. As we've seen it time and time again. Or as it is known, it is an adage.
community you forsaken now breaks you. Most reactors think your verses whack, they're just afraid to say truth. Cause being fake like you just may do things for their career. But if they really hit the shit you really say, you really wouldn't be here.
Yeah, now this is basically him saying that people only say the positive stuff they do about him because they feel like, hey, they're almost scared of him in a sense. And to an extent, I can see where he's coming from. However, I do feel like people are trying to be genuine. They are trying to at least give what their reactions are on a surface level with it. And I felt the same way about Dax. I felt like his tracks were good. His solo stuff was great. And then his collab stuff was just, as I said, it was more him going through the motions and stuff. And I think even he knows that too. I feel like people are holding back from that and trying to use his solo work as the base for his collabs. And that's fair. That's fine. You do that with a lot of rappers. We see that as well. Like, and I'll give you an example. Like, J. Cole did Middle Child in January. Great song, by the way. And J. Cole, yes, he is the best rapper right now. So that might be a high, lofty standard to match. But yes, he did Middle Child, which is fantastic. And then he did a collab with 21 Savage a lot. And he was straight flames on that too. The guy is culturally aware. He's social media aware. And he's definitely showing why he is the best of this generation. Without a doubt, in my opinion.
He's somewhere in Canada, cocky as fuck. How you the janitor, but I'm the one that's mopping you up.
I love that janitorial reference.
Fuck you fake hoe, ain't no Drano when I'm blocking you up. Got a verse from this nigga, even paid for some things, but he never pushed the audio. The niggas are lame. I complain like why you do that shit. The nigga was saying he was sorry. Pay for a video, he'll push it the same. He seemed real, so I trusted him and hopped on the plane. From the crew, copped some rooms, all the shit I was paying. Should've known that this dude was a lame. He pulled up like a dame, should've pulled things and pulled off with his chains. But they probably leave my fucking neck stained. I wish you success on your next.
There was just a recap of the situation with the Dream Chasers, as well as tying it into the Four Horsemen. And then with some really, really nice, like, disses, like, hey, I should probably rip off your chains and stuff, but then they'll stain me because of how fake they are. It's funny. He's got away with words. He's basically using his wordplay to his advantage to send barbs, to send body blows Dax's way, and really rain down with them missiles. Now, on that Dream Chaser stuff, basically, if you pay for a service, you should receive that service, and he didn't in this case. Or, well, he didn't receive it to the satisfactory level of the investment that he put in. And it's understandable that he would be annoyed about it, that he would be frustrated about it. I would be too if someone did that to me. I mean, if I paid someone to do something, I would expect them to at least give their best. Or if they didn't feel it or vibe with it, then I would want them to tell me straight up instead of lying to my face and then going behind my back and saying, hey, I don't feel it. Which is what he did to Crypt with the Four Horsemen stuff. He basically was saying to Screw that he wasn't feeling it, but then A, he'd taken the money, and B, he'd commented on the Four Horsemen video itself that it was legendary and that all four were going to blow up and that he loved working with them. How are you going to do that and then lie through your teeth? That's all I want to know.
Hey, no, really, I wish you the best, man. So you don't have to keep on scamming for checks, man. She cheated on you once, I'm like, oh well. She cheated on you twice, you a hoe still. But you can't really blame her unless you...
I don't know much about the story, but it's the whole fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me sort of situation where if you're going to take someone back, then you've got to try to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes again. And then if they do, then you should cut them off. It's obvious that they're not the right for you and that they're always going to do this. Once you do it once, it almost shows a tendency to do it. And how are you going to trust someone who has that tendency?
She's so real. She want a man, not a nigga to paint his toenails. We not your boys.
Yeah, along with the manicure stuff, the whole toenail painting is portraying Dax as being soft underbelly, just like a snake. And it's funny because it's like, hey, look, like a snake, you have a soft underbelly. And I'm about to cut off the head. I love that sort of thing. It's like full-on body blows.
I was trying to be good. Let me calm down, please. Someone find me a word. Nigga think he Machiavelli like he trying to be her. Niggas think they pop till the cop riding with Suge.
Basically, Dax has compared himself to Machiavelli or Tupac. And he's bore up the fact that how Machiavelli or Tupac was shot by Suge Knight. And like, hey, you're gonna get popped in the face if you want to be like Tupac. And just to give you an old quote, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face, or shot in this instance. And I love that sort of mentality as well. I love the way how he's taken adages and actually spun them in a sense to fit it into the context of the diss track. These are just some brilliant bars.
P, little boy, this was just a little love tap. Fuck that, now punch him where his lungs at. And we should send him right back where he from, Jack. Can't we just deport him and fucking get 21 back?
Yeah, it's the 21 Savage reference, free 21. I love that. It's like, hey, can we put him in place of 21 Savage? Can we deport him and bring back 21 in doing so? All in all, this is a fantastic diss track. Brilliant bars, brilliant rhyme schemes. I love the fact that he goes through it with the same beat and keeps within the flow throughout the song instead of unnecessary beat changes, and conveying his points in a way where you can understand them but also hiding sort of meanings behind them that allow them to actually expand beyond the beat, but beyond the beat, and be sort of a rally call to YouTubers in general and saying, hey, we are the ones who make them big. We are the ones that get the message into the light about these guys by reacting to them. We unearth them in a sense, and if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be relevant, or they would have to ride and swim in the ocean that is the mainstream rap game. So they should really be thanking us. They should really be honouring who we are and what we've done. Now, yes, SFJ has rapped before YouTube, but he calls himself a YouTuber. He respects the YouTube game, and it's what makes him. He knows that. He loves that sort of thing, and I respect him for it. I love how, as I said, he wants the fans and he wants the reactions to be there for him all the way, and that's something that you should want. And that's something I think Dax should try to at least understand, which from SFJ's video where he did the conclusion to it, he said that Dax did somewhat understand that. It's basically a concept of, you have a tool here. You should use it, you should make the most advantage that you can from it. And if that means people reacting to you, whether or not that is positive or negative, hell, you might even get fan bases, even if the reactor themselves didn't necessarily like your content. There will be people out there who do, who may not have heard of you if the reactor didn't react to them. So, in that sense, why not use that to your advantage? Why not put it out there for the reactors? Why not embrace the social media climate that music, that in fact life in general is starting to turn into, and use that not just as a leverage point, but as a legitimate tool, as another medium to make yourself known on, and then springboard yourself. Yes, it's still a leverage point, but that's not your main focus. Your main focus is using the fan base and having it actually an established base behind you before you make your rise to the top. That's something that I feel like a lot of people don't quite grasp the concept of. It's like, yes, you've got the grind. A platform like YouTube can make the grind easier by having people react, give you the publicity that you desire. As I said again, publicity, whether or not that is good publicity or bad publicity, is still free publicity. And it is something that you should embrace. And that's what Dax said at the start was correct. It's like, yes, publicity. And it was. Now, do I think he was in the wrong? Absolutely. Absolutely. Scamming for checks and stuff like that, that's not on. That's snaking. Trying to shunt aside those who you collab with and trying to just be like, hey, it's just like a drab affair, and regurgitating what you do over and over again. I don't necessarily think that's so much a point of like, hey, oh, this is why we hate him. You can hate him for it, like, as I said, Taylor Swift, but it is repetitive, it is boring, it repetitive, stale, and then it really gets to a point where it's like, is there anything else you can do? Can you just diversify your topics of discussion? Give us something more than what you've already given us. And that's something that every single person can learn. Like, just give us something more. That's what Screw did with this diss track. That's what he did with Dream Chasers compared to Four Horsemen, where I said it was basically just there. It was just there. It was really easy to forget. Now, I will say this. I will more than likely be doing more reactions of SFJ in the future, because his stuff is great. And I really, really want to hear what he has next for everyone. And the same with Dax. I want to see how Dax rebounds from this. I want to see how he takes everything on board and changes his own persona to actually accommodate not just the platform, but also accommodate those who are here working with. Those who are actually paying him to feature on their tracks. And if he changes up him and tweaks his style whilst keeping to what he is, or if he just falls back into the same sort of traps, the same sort of lures that have always consumed him, that have always made him what he was. Either way, I feel like this is actually something that from both aspects will help them. Dax in regards to learning and developing just how to operate, how to work in the business climate, how to actually incorporate YouTube into his own sort of establishment and getting a fan base around him, while Screw continuing to cultivate his fan base as well as the YouTube movement and the uprising that he is seeking, which is something that falls right into the whole be the change you seek adage, and the if you want something done, then the best person to do it is you yourself. And anyway, this has been a 30-minute reaction. I didn't intend for it to be that way, but there was a lot to say, there was a lot to cover, and I really wanted to actually enjoy and immerse myself within the diss track itself, which was, I feel like I really did with this. Hopefully this gives you some new context.
Can we do that? Can we do that?
But just to wrap it up all nicely and stuff, I loved everything about it, man. If you can do more tracks like this, they don't have to be diss tracks. Like, if you can do more songs with this sort of flow style, this sort of schematics, you've got a lot of potential. You're going to go places in 2019, Screw. And consider me a fully fledged member of the SFJ Nation right now, honestly. As for Dax, as I said, I want to see where he goes from here and how he recovers and how he mends the bridges. Not just with the FaceTime stuff he did, where he didn't necessarily directly apologize, but at the same time he did. And also with Crypt. And as I said, with the Four Horsemen beef and him basically lying and almost backstabbing Crypt in a sense by saying one thing to him directly and then lying through his teeth to him and then going behind back and acting like he didn't really jive with it. Anyway, feel free to like and comment, subscribe.